or Tiana, which is with a J, and welcome back to another episode of the Right Opinion podcast. In this podcast, I like to discuss various topics and how they relate to both writers and writing. If you've been following me on Instagram for the last little while, you are going to know that I went to the Netherlands to visit my best friend Anna New, and it was our first time meeting in person because she's doing a study exchange program in the Netherlands and I'm living in Europe, so I wanted to take the opportunity to actually go meet her in person, and so that's what I did. And the reason I mention this is because today's topic that I want to discuss is traveling and how traveling has affected my writing for what I think is for the better. So back in 2022 of March, I went to Peru for 2 weeks, or what was supposed to be 2 weeks because I never ended up coming back, and I ended up spending 2 months there. Then I went to Argentina, and then I came to Serbia, and I traveled around Europe, and I went to Egypt, and then I went back to Canada, and back in Europe, and then I was in the Netherlands, and I've been kind of all over the place for the last 2 years, and it's been absolutely wonderful because I love traveling probably more than anything. It's definitely one of my favorite things to do. And while I had gone to Peru, I was still writing my book and throughout all my traveling. And I realized how much more of a powerful impact my traveling could have on my writing that it didn't have as much before while I was still living at home in Canada. So one of the main things about traveling is that you meet so many different people. You meet people from all various aspects of the world, from different cultures, religions, different upbringings, and you guys connect in a way that you normally don't connect with people in the same way that you do with the people that you grew up with or that are from the same city as you, that had a similar upbringing. And especially like if you're like me, where you meet people and then you end up staying with them for a while. So I've lived with people for a few days to a few weeks to even a couple months, and so I really get to bond with these people in ways that I've never bonded with a lot of my other friends, for example, that I went to school with or that I grew up with. And I've realized traveling is, for me, the best way to fully experience being human and being alive. And now I want to translate those feelings into my writing. So, for example, one of my friends from Peru, his name is Caesar. Caesar, if you're watching, you inspired one of my characters. His name is Benny, and I realized that Benny didn't really have a lot of, let's say, more human traits to him. Like, I kind of wanted him to be the comedic relief in Project TOD, and I want him to be kind of the odd one out of his brothers. And so one of the things that I kind of realized was like, oh, I think it would be really cool if he liked to cook. And so my friend Caesar, he loves to cook, and he would cook for us all the time. And so kind of watching him do all of that, I was like, oh, this would be really cool. Like, I can see this being a cool trait for Benny. And so I want to try and like write that into Project TOD right now as one of the things that Benny does. And as I've, spent so much time with all these different people, I realized that how we bond with our inside jokes and the nicknames that we create for each other and just the experience that we get to have. I want to take those same emotions that I felt and those same behaviors and ways that we acted and use that for the characters in my books to make them feel more alive and authentic. And I realized that kind of as I was reading through Project TOD for the first time. I was like, oh yeah, this is very much sometimes this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. Like, it's very it's sequential but very logical in a way. And so I felt like sometimes it was lacking that bit of like human touch, especially in the relationships, because the relationships in Project TOD are extremely important, because there is a big secret revealed at the end, and if the relationships aren't solidified and if they aren't as realistic, it's not going to make my ending nearly nearly as powerful or impactful as I want it to be. And so as I travel, I form these very intense relationships with people because, again, you have such a short amount of time together. You tend to bond very quickly in a way sometimes with people because you're both traveling, you're away from home, you're in a foreign country where you don't speak the language, you don't know anyone, you're unfamiliar with the culture. So when you meet people who you can kind of connect with, it's in a way a lot more intense than when you just, meet people at home where you grew up. And another thing with that is that when you do finally leave each other, so you both, you move on and everyone goes their separate ways, it's in a way that much harder. Like, if anyone's had a friendship breakup, you know how hard that is. It's like, for me, I feel like it's even worse when you click with people while you're traveling and then you guys go your separate ways because, like, you live together, you do stuff together for days and days on end, and you bond in ways that you've never bonded with other people, and then you have to say goodbye to them. Realistically speaking, most of these people you're never going to see again, and you even, like, eventually kind of stop talking, even though, you promise you're going to stay in touch. And even with the advent of social media, a lot of the time people just drift off, and it's in a way a lot harder and a lot more intense and emotional, I find, than the relationships that I've had with people back home. And so I want to take all these experiences and really be able to put them into words into my novels, and hopefully I can convey that accurately in my characters and in their relationships and the ways that they interact with each other. I find that because traveling is so much more intensive an experience, I'm able to experience everything a lot more strongly. So happiness, the amount of happiness I feel when I travel, it's so much more than, like, when I'm just staying at home and hanging out with people, as you normally do. When you, again, the breakups, when you're leaving people and you're moving on, it's so much harder. It's so much more intense. It's like grieving for somebody you've lost. And it just gives you a new perspective on how people act as well. And if there's certain character traits I want people to have, I know people from all over the place, and, like, how would they think, how would they react, how would they see certain things. And I think that ultimately is going to help me write more powerful and impactful books in the future. And of course, as you travel around, you get to see so many different things, monuments, museums. You get to see how different ways that people live, and this is all really inspiring. So, people will say, if you want to, where do you find ideas? You have to go out into the world. You have to interact with it. Now, not everybody's going to be able to travel as much as I do. Some people don't even want to travel as much as I do, and that's fine. But you have to go out, and you have to seek out new experiences. So go to the neighboring city from where you live. Go do something in your city that you've never done, or go sign up for a club or something that you've never participated in before. But for me, that's what traveling is. It's I put myself in some really intense situations because I like that. I love it, and I like to push myself out of my comfort zone, and ultimately I find so much more inspiration, and I find so many more ideas with the things that I want to write. And of course, the people make the biggest difference. And so those are the two big ways that traveling have impacted my writing. Of course, it's a little bit hard to travel and write at the same time because I also want to see everything when I'm going somewhere, and so I can't just sit and write for hours a day. But that's why when I come home, I, try to keep those experiences in mind. I write about them, and I try to really keep them in mind when I'm planning out my characters or my story. So how do these two characters interact? How is their relationship formed? What sorts of ways do they interact with each other? Their inside jokes, their emotions, their body language. And I look to the experiences I've already had and the closest relationships I've formed, and how those impacted me, and then how can I translate that onto the page in front of me with all of my characters. So if you love to travel, let me know in the comments down below. And have you noticed anything like this where when you're traveling, it just has helped you with your writing? I would be so interested to know. And my piece of advice is go out there, go see the world, travel as much as you can, and yeah, keep writing your books. And so thank you for listening to today's episode of the Right Opinion podcast, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.